The Galactic Survival Challenge had been running for 3 centuries, broadcasting to 7 billion viewers across 42 star systems. Species from every corner of known space competed to prove their worthiness, their adaptability, their right to claim dominance in the cosmic hierarchy. The rules were simple and absolute. Participants would be dropped on a primitive world with nothing but basic clothing. No technology. No tools, no weapons. Survive 30 planetary rotations using only what the environment provided. Commander Ixtal of the Vreen Empire had won twice before. His crystalline exoskeleton gleamed with pride as he materialized on the forest floor, already calculating his strategy. The Vreen were apex predators on 17 worlds. This would be routine. Beside him, the other contestants arrived in flashes of blue light. Korthax, a 4-armed Dravian known for her tactical brilliance. Selef, whose species had perfected photosynthesis millennia ago, requiring minimal sustenance. And then the human. Ixtal had studied the preliminary files. Humans were recent additions to the Galactic Council, barely a century since first contact. They came from a death world called Earth, where the gravity was crushing, the atmosphere corrosive with oxygen, and the predators nightmarish. But they had only reached the stars through luck and salvaged alien technology. Primitive, unremarkable. The human female stood barely to Ixtal's thorax. Her designation was Chen, Maria. She wore simple fabric garments and surveyed the alien landscape with unsettling calmness. Contestants, the disembodied voice of the game master echoed across the clearing. The challenge begins now. Ixtal immediately climbed the nearest tree to scout the terrain. Korthax began searching for water sources. Selef positioned herself in a sunbeam to begin energy absorption. The human walked to a fallen log and kicked it over. Then she began picking up rocks. By the second rotation, Ixtal had established a crude shelter of branches and leaves. He'd found a stream and cataloged 3 types of edible fungi. Survival meant patience, meant rationing energy, meant enduring discomfort until extraction. Then he smelled smoke. Impossible. The environment contained nothing that could spontaneously combust. He followed the scent to a clearing where the human sat before a controlled fire, rotating some kind of sharpened stick with impaled meat over the flames. How did you... Ixtal's translator struggled with his shock.
Technology is prohibited.
Maria looked up, chewing. This isn't technology. It's fire. I rubbed 2 sticks together really fast. Creates friction heat. That's impossible. That's a chemical reaction requiring... Yeah, my species figured it out about 1 million years ago. She gestured to the fire pit she'd constructed with stones. Want some rabbit? I made extra. Ixtal's sensory organs couldn't process this. 1 million years? Before they had spacecraft? You killed an animal? With this. She held up a sharpened stone bound to a wooden handle with plant fibers. A crude axe. Made it this morning. Actually, I made 3. The first 2 broke, but you learn. My ancestors were knapping stone tools 3 million years ago. 3 million years. Before the Vreen even evolved language, humans were already engineering. The rules prohibit weapons, Ixtal protested weakly. I didn't bring a weapon. I made one. From a rock, she bit into the cooked meat. That's the whole point of being human. We make things. By rotation 7, word had spread. The camera drones that followed each contestant had captured everything, and the broadcast ratings had shattered records. Galactic audiences watched in horror and fascination as the human didn't just survive but thrived. She'd constructed a permanent shelter with a stone foundation, thatched roof, and elevated bed frame. She'd woven baskets from plant fibers to store foraged nuts and berries. She'd created a bow and arrows, bringing down larger prey with terrifying efficiency. She'd even fashioned crude pottery and was firing it in her campfire. The other contestants struggled with basic survival. Korthax had contracted a parasitic infection from drinking untreated water. Selef discovered that this planet's sun didn't provide the right light spectrum for her biology. Ixtal had managed to find shelter and sustenance, but he was gaunt, exhausted, barely holding on. The human had gained weight. On rotation 12, the game master made an unprecedented mid-competition announcement. Contestant Chen is under investigation for rule violations. Her use of advanced survival techniques may constitute... What rule did I break? Maria's voice was sharp. You said no technology. I didn't bring anything tech. I'm using my hands, my brain, and natural materials. That's not technology. That's Tuesday. The judges convened. They reviewed their own definitions. Technology was defined as tools created through industrial processes or requiring metalworking, electronics, or advanced materials science. Everything the human made was wood, stone, plant fiber, and clay. Technically, it wasn't technology by their definition. It was pre-technology. Proto-technology, it was Tuesday. By rotation 20, the human had domesticated several small animals, creating a crude farm. She'd mapped the entire region, marking water sources and game trails on bark sheets using charcoal ink. She'd even begun teaching Korthax and Selef her techniques, and they'd formed an alliance. Why help us? Korthax asked as Maria showed her how to purify water by boiling it. Because that's what humans do, Maria said simply. We're social animals. We share knowledge. That's how we went from small groups hiding in caves to building cities. We teach each other. Ixtal watched from a distance, too proud to ask for help, too weak to compete. He'd spent his entire life believing the Vreen were superior. They'd conquered worlds while humans still lived in tribal villages. But now he understood the terrifying truth. Humans didn't need to conquer worlds. They made worlds conquer themselves. On rotation 30, extraction arrived. Medical teams immediately attended to the contestants. Ixtal required emergency hospitalization. Korthax and Selef were dehydrated and malnourished, but stable. Maria was gardening. She'd planted seeds and wanted to see if they'd sprout before she left. The winner, the game master announced, by unanimous decision and the highest survival metrics ever recorded, contestant Chen. The galaxy watched as the human accepted her trophy, a simple crystal monument. I want to say something, Maria spoke into the cameras. Every species here today is incredible. You've survived in environments you didn't evolve for, without any of your natural advantages. That takes courage, she paused. But I also want you to understand something about humans. We spent millions of years as prey. We were weak, slow, and small, so we learned to make ourselves dangerous. We learned to make fire, to craft weapons, to build shelters, not because we were strong, but because we had no other choice. She held up the stone axe she'd made on day one. This isn't technology. This is necessity. This is what humans were doing when your species were still deciding whether to crawl out of the oceans. We've been surviving since the beginning. It's not special. It's just what we are. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, civilizations that had pitied or dismissed humanity suddenly understood. They hadn't invited survivors to join the stars. They'd invited survivors who'd been sharpening rocks for 3 million years, just waiting for something worth hunting.